Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. My name is Juanita Williams. I am a purpose conduit. I am the link to life beyond pain and the channel to discovering purpose. And this is today's Tuesday Truths. So we're going to jump right into it. Today we're going to be talking about expectations and narratives. And I'm just going to say a quick prayer and ask God just to lead and guide. Father, help me to speak whatever it is you have for me to speak. Everything else is trash. And may you be glorified in it and through it. And may it encourage somebody else to tell their testimony. In Jesus' name, I bless you and I praise you. Amen. So we're going to be talking about expectations and narratives. So what is a narrative? Y'all know I love looking up words. I love to be able to share what the true definition is, and then share how God is using that word to bless others. So narratives. Narratives is a spoken or written account of connected events, a story. So what is your narrative? What is your narrative? So when I was 12 or 13 years old. I'm not exactly sure how old I was when I was 12 or 13. So I would just say I was a tween. Maybe I was a, preteen or a teenager. I can't remember exactly how old I was. 12 or 13 is what came in my spirit. I wanted to be diagnosed with some kind of sickness or disease. I know, sounds really weird, doesn't it? But I was outside one day, either hanging up clothes on the line. We used to do that, and they smelled fresh. They didn't smell like outside. Or either taking them down. And one of the neighbors was out there with me, and we were just having a conversation. And I just told her, I said, I wish I was, sick or something. I can't remember exactly what the narrative was, but I said, I wish I had something. And that neighbor friend prophesied to me, and I'm sure she didn't realize that she did. She told me, you just want some attention. You just want some attention. And after she said that, I tried to retract my statement, but I couldn't. Because she called me out, and I was embarrassed for uttering those words. I was. So I tried to be slick and be like, oh, I was just playing. I didn't mean that. But yeah, actually, I did mean it. And to be honest, at that moment, I felt free enough to share with her how I was really feeling on the inside. But thank God for his grace and mercy, seriously, because in my ignorance, those words that I uttered were now in the atmosphere, me wanting to have some kind of disease or illness or something. And guess who heard it? Satan. And he's been trying to capitalize on those words for years. He keeps trying to throw stuff at me to make me think that I need to have something wrong with me in order for somebody to pay attention to me. But he's a liar. He is a liar. And I thank God for his protection, because he knew what I was dealing with at the time. And it was loneliness, even though I was in a house full of people, 15 to be exact, maybe 14 at the time, but soon to be 15. 15. Maybe a few of the kids had left, so maybe it was a little less, but it still was a whole lot of people in the house. Yet I was lonely. I was lonely. And wanting to have some kind of sickness, illness, or disease was my way of garnering attention. She was right. I wanted somebody to pay attention to me. I'm like, I'm here. I felt so invisible when I was growing up. Like, oh yeah, I'm here, especially when I've done something wrong. And then it's, out there for everybody. And oh yeah, okay, I'm getting in trouble and everybody knows it. Everybody can see it. But other than that, I felt invisible. I tried to be, a good student. I tried to be just a good daughter, period. But I felt invisible and I was lonely. So let me go back to like when I was a little girl, like 3 years old. And I've shared before um, that my mom passed away when I was 3 years old. And at that time, I was still in the house with a whole lot of people because it was my dad and my six brothers and me. So it still was a whole lot of people in the house, but it was a bunch of men, boys and men, and it was just me. So at that time, I learned how to be a loner because I didn't have anybody to play with that was a girl. Of course, I could have played with my brothers. There was a little girl that used to live down the street from us. We used to live in Taft. She lived somewhere in the Taft, but she used to come over and play with me sometime. But I didn't have anybody in the house that looked like me, that acted like me. Not everything like me, but I think you get the gist of it. So I just learned how to be a loner, and I have been a loner all of my life. But let me get back to expectations and narratives. So again, I wanted this illness, sickness, or disease because I was lonely, and that was my way of garnering attention. I wanted somebody to pay attention to me. So we have to watch our words. We definitely have to watch our words. Psalms 141:3 says this: set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Keep a watch over the door of my lips. What I said back then was an innocent mistake. I didn't know really what I was asking for, really what I didn't know. I just wanted somebody to pay attention to me. But now that I know better, I'm doing better, and I strive to do better daily. So beware of what you're assigning to yourself. Beware when you're assigning things to yourself, and beware that you are assigning things to yourself by making statements like my this or my that. And I'm referring to like illnesses, sickness, and disease, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, social, whatever it is. Beware that when you speak those words, when you own it, this is mine, me, mine, you are assigning that thing to yourself. So I work for the Social Security hearings office, and sometimes I have to record hearings. This is record disability hearings where people are trying to get disability. And I've heard several people say over the years, and I worked for Social Security for 31 years. And now it's actually like going on 32 years because I retired and then went back. Thank the Lord for opening that door. That's another testimony in itself. But anyway, I've heard people, say over the years, when they're testifying, they will say stuff like, whatever their illness was, my diabetes, my rheumatoid arthritis, my bipolar, my schizophrenia, whatever, they were dealing with, they would take ownership of it and say, it's mine. Well, why would you want something that doesn't belong to you? And I'm gonna get into that a little later. The disease or the mental health issue, it happened to you, but it is not you. By you assigning that thing to yourself, you're saying that it's a part of you, and it's not. God didn't make you. Okay, let me just stop. And let me keep going, get back to my script. So just be aware that you are assigning things. And yes, you may be dealing with something. Right now I'm dealing with some kind of issue with my skin. It's some kind of rash. And then I'm also dealing with tingling and numbness and swelling and some other stuff and pain in my hands and feet. But I'm going to the doctor. But I'm not assigning whatever it is. I'm not going to assign it to myself because I believe that whatever it is, if it's something that I've done to myself and I'm jumping ahead of myself, then I will change what I need to change. And if God is allowing it, then it will be a testimony to help somebody else. And I just jumped ahead of myself. So let me get back to, what I was sharing before. You may be dealing with something, but I encourage you not to assign whatever that thing is to yourself. Don't take ownership of it. And I also encourage you to study about the spirit of infirmities, because there is a spirit of infirmity. And whether you believe that Satan is real or not, he is, and he has his little demons and his imps that does his dirty work for him. And there is a spirit of infirmity. I won't go into that, not going to delve into that today, but I just want you to be aware that Satan studies your patterns. And since he studies your patterns, and you're taking ownership of whatever it is, then he's like jumping on that. Well, let me assign this demon to that thing. Well, let me assign this demon to that. Oh, they want that? Okay, well, let me go ahead and keep it oppressing them or possessing them with that thing. I'm encouraging you to speak life instead of disease and death. So, like I said, I jumped a little bit ahead when I said that God does allow some things. He does. So I'm not speaking about the things that we bring on ourselves. I did mention that before too, but there are some things that we bring on ourselves. Sometimes we cause our own sickness and disease. We do. Sometimes we cause our own mental anguish because we don't care for ourselves well. So what do you think is going to happen if you keep eating a bunch of sugar? What do you think is going to happen if you keep eating a bunch of pork or fatty foods? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to gain weight from eating all that sugar and all them sweets and all that good stuff that you like. You're going to gain weight. Everything is supposed to be done in moderation anyway. And you may, get high blood pressure, inflammation, which is some swelling of your extremities, diabetes, a fatty liver, and you could also end up with clogged arteries, which leads to low blood flow to your heart, which could lead to a heart attack or even death. So, like, there are things we need to do also to take care of ourselves, along with not assigning stuff to ourselves. So I'm not talking about the people that were born with, some kind of illness or, some kind of physical illness or mental illness. I'm not talking about that. And there's something else I could say about the mental illness, but I will digress for now. But I'm not talking about that. I mean, there are other kind of illnesses that we're born with as well. But, there are things that we have to deal with throughout our lifetime. But like I said, there are some things that God allows. And my pastor said this a couple of weeks ago. He says, everything in your life has permission to be there. And his name is Pastor Shamari White. So whether you give it permission or God gives it permission, it has permission to be there. So if you didn't give it permission and God didn't give it permission, then it's trespassing. And you have the right to evict that thing out of you immediately. Pastor Shamari White. So that's one of the reasons why we don't keep assigning stuff to ourselves, because if it's trespassing, it ain't supposed to be there. So you have the authority to tell it to get out, evict that mug, whatever it is, immediately. However, you have to want to evict that thing. You have to want to. And that takes us right back to narratives. That stuff that comes from our mouth, what we speak out of our mouth. So a few years back, I was praying fervently because I, quotation marks, I wanted some people that are dear to me. I wanted them to be healed and I wanted them to be free because they were dealing with some physical ailments and, some mental ailments as well. And I wanted them to be free. I wanted them to be free. I keep saying that because I wanted them to be free. And you'll see why in a minute. So in my prayer time, God told me, unfortunately, I'm saying unfortunately, but he told me that the people that I was praying for, they didn't want to be free or healed. And I was like, huh? Like, why wouldn't they want to be free? Why wouldn't they want to be healed? Then, you know, me and him just had a whole conversation about that, but he said that that illness is part of their identity. Yeah, part of their identity. And if they are healed, they won't know their identity because that thing is tied to them. Remember, I said earlier about the spirit of infirmity. That thing is tied to them. Especially if they've been dealing with it for years and years and years and years, and it's become a part of them. They have taken ownership of it. And he said, some of them they don't want to be healed. I heard a story of a man who went to a healing camp, a healing service, and the minister was calling people up. The person was in a wheelchair, but the person did not want to go forth. They did not want to be healed after watching other people get healed because they didn't want to lose their disability check. And unfortunately, I just heard that a few weeks ago as well. And I'll just stop right there. I'm like, really? So you would rather get a check than and not have to, then be healed and not have to deal with what you're dealing with? But okay, I digress. If that's what you want, then so be it. I mean, like I said, we have the ability, especially if it's trespassing, to evict it. But again, God said they have to want it. And he said some people don't want to be free and they do not want to be healed. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So I ask you, do you want healing or do you want to be shackled? Think about that. Can I encourage you today to evict what does not belong? God created you for greater. He created you for greater. The thing that we're carrying, it's a heavy burden, and we weren't designed to carry the heavy burden. God carries our burdens. Now, let me be clear. I'm not referring to what God allows. I'm referring to that stuff that we put on ourselves. Because if we're honest with ourselves, there are some things that we do that cause some damage to this temple that we're living in. What God created in his image. We can do some damage to ourselves. So I encourage you today, if it doesn't belong, if God hasn't allowed it, it doesn't have a permission to be there, evict it. So what God allows, it adds to your testimony, and it will be used for our good and for his glory. That's one of the reasons why he allows it. Because it's going to add to your testimony. It's going to be for your good, even though it don't feel good. It's going to be for your good, but it's going to glorify him when he heals you. And if he chooses not to heal you on this side of earth, when it's your time to go home, you will be completely healed. But it still will be for his glory. And then there's the whole, I hear the Holy Spirit. There's a whole nother segment of this that I need to talk about because there are some things that he allows. And then, if we're doing all this grumbling and complaining, that's not glorifying God in any kind of way. And nobody's going to want to hear that testimony. But I digress on that, and I'm going to keep moving forward, so I won't keep you too long. So like I said, so what God allows, it'll be for our testimony, for our good, and for his glory. Also, just because the doctor, gave you a diagnosis, it doesn't mean that you have to accept that diagnosis. I'm not saying don't, follow the doctor's instructions, because God allows them, to minister to us as well. But remember when I said earlier, we speak life. We speak life and healing. We don't speak death to ourselves. And I'm not saying don't, like I said, I'm not saying don't take the prescribed medication, whatever the doctor is instructing you to do, then definitely follow those directions. Because how will you get better if you don't? If you're diagnosed with something, talk to God about it. I know I'm just it might seem like I'm all over the place, but I'm not. Because we're talking about expectations and narratives, those things that we speak out of our mouths, or something that we repeat that somebody else said that we take ownership of. Talk to God about it. Ask him, like, I wouldn't say, Lord, why me? I wouldn't say that, but you have your own relationship with God. So, talk to him and ask him, what are you supposed to learn from this? And how is it supposed to help anybody else? And then how's it going to glorify him? Because he's going to get the glory. He is going to get the glory. Most of all, though, how will it help somebody else? Because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and our testimony. So how is it going to help somebody else? How is it going to help somebody else? It may be that God allowed that thing so that he can heal you. So someone else will be blessed by your testimony and may come to salvation. You just never know. So that's why we talk to God. You can, talk to your friends if you want to, but I would encourage you to talk to God, because he is the one that created you. And if he allowed it, then he's the one that's going to bring you through it. He's going to heal you on this side of heaven, or maybe not, but he's going to allow you to tell the testimony. He's going to allow you to tell the testimony. Okay. I'm almost done, y'all. Also, there are names and narratives that people put on you, stuff that people say about you, stuff that people say that you are, and you're not. Those are just mere words. They're just mere words. They only come alive when you start accepting and speaking those words out of your mouth. Just because somebody said something about you doesn't mean that it's true. Can I say that again? Just because somebody said something about you does not mean that it's true. Who are you? They don't know you. God created you. Now, there are some things that we have done that people may be talking about that is true. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that want to say you're this or you're that, or they want to say, pretty much talk about your character. I'll just put it like, thank you, Holy Spirit, talk about your character. They're just words. Don't accept them. Because if you start accepting them and you start speaking those things out of your mouth, then you give life to it. So let's talk about expectations. I told you about narratives. Let's talk about expectations. Of course, I looked up the word. Expectations is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. Proverbs, before I go to Proverbs, let me ask you, what are your expectations? What are your expectations? Do you want to live? And I ain't talking about just existing, because some of us are just here. We're not really living. Or do you want to die? And I'm not even talking about a physical death. I'm talking about your soul dead. The inside of you is dead. Do you want to live or do you want to die? Proverbs 18:21 says this: death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. In Matthew 4:4, New King James Version says this: but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. So what is God saying about you? Why everybody else is trying to say something and put their own narrative on who they think you are. What is God saying about you? Song of Solomon 4:7 says this: you are altogether beautiful. My love, there is no flaw in you. You are altogether beautiful, my love, and there is no flaw in you. Jeremiah 1:5 says this: before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And then Isaiah, I'm getting my phone, because I got some scriptures on here. Isaiah 43:4 says this: others were given in exchange for you. I traded their lives for yours because you are precious to me. You are honored and I love you. And then the 7th verse of Isaiah, the 43rd chapter, says, bring all who claim me as their God, for I have made them for my glory. It is I who created them. God created you, not man. He used your mother and your father as conduits to get you here. But he is the one that created you. He gave you your mama's DNA. He gave you your daddy's DNA. But he is the one that created you. So he is the one that knows all about you. And he is the one that says he loves you. You are without flaw. I know we were talking about illnesses and diseases, physical and mental, but God didn't create you for that. I mean, if he allowed it, then it's for a testimony. If it's something that you're doing to yourself, please stop. Please watch your words, because whatever you speak and you believe it, you give life to it. And you can flip that too, because you can speak the positive and give life to that, but don't speak words of death over yourself. Stop assigning stuff to yourself. I mean, sure, if you've been diagnosed with diabetes, you don't have to say my diabetes. You can say this diabetes that I'm dealing with, if you just need some language. Don't assign it to yourself, because God can heal you if you want to be healed. And then if he chooses not to, he still can use it as a testimony. Okay, I'm almost done. So watch your words. And when somebody is speaking negativity over you, nullify the negative narratives. They don't know you. They don't know nothing about you. All they know is what they see. They don't know your inner man. They don't know what you've dealt with or what you're dealing with. They don't know what your purpose is. They don't know what God created you to do. They don't know you. God is the only one that knows you inside and out. He is the one that knows every hair on your head. He created you from head to toe, inside out. He is the one, the only one, not your mother, not your father. He is the only one that knows you through and through. So believe what he says about you and speak those positive things over your life and watch change happen. And then shore up your expectations by speaking life. Listen, God created us for purpose. I am the purpose conduit. And, he created us for purpose. So my name is Juanita Williams. I was going to say something else, but I'm going to stop. My name is Juanita Williams. This is today's Tuesday Truth. And I will see you all next week. God willing, be blessed. I hope this word blesses you. And I hope it helps you to watch your words. Think about what you're saying before you say it. right? And of course, the devil he hates the fact that, I am sharing this word with you. And he's going to try to speak all kinds of negativity over your life, but don't let him. Don't let him. Don't let him. Shut him up. Tell him what God says about you. Shut him up. Because you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and he didn't have nothing to do with it. All he's trying to do is destroy your life because he knows you have purpose. He knows that God created you for a purpose, and he has people assigned to you that only you can reach. So it's time for you to be about God's business. Watch your words. Watch your words. Speak life, not death. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening every week. Thank you for those who support me. I really appreciate you. Share the word. Share the video with somebody. Let it bless them as it blesses you. Again, my name is Juanita Williams. I'm the Purpose Conduit. I am the link to life beyond pain and the channel to discovering purpose. And this is today's Tuesday Truth. I'll see you next week, God willing.